Welcome to Coffee Corner Motorsport, Full Beans the podcast. It's been an absolute while. I'm, of course, your host, Terry, and for the next 30 minutes, we're going to be talking about my trip to Las Vegas, Cadillac, and all things Formula One. Now, a bit of housekeeping, if you've not already, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, follow button, whatever is available on the platform you're listening to this to. Don't forget to grab your coffee because it's bloody cold in this shed. And yeah, let's talk Formula One. We're going to start off with that news from Formula One about Monza. Now, that's just been announced. So Monza has agreed an extension until 2031. What this means is, in terms of rotational tracks on the Formula One calendar, we're now looking at Spa and we're looking at Zandvoort as being the main two who are going to be rotated on a year-by-year basis if we get a new track added. So we know that Formula One are looking to go to Argentina. We also know they're looking to go to South Africa. The only way they can do this without exceeding 24 races is to put a couple of tracks on a rotational basis. Imola is still a question mark in terms of its long-term future on the Formula One calendar, but with the announcement that Monaco's just signed a new long-term deal, Silverstone had a new long-term deal, and now we're hearing that Monza's got a new long-term deal. In terms of European tracks, it seems like it's only Zandvoort, Imola, and of course Spa who have a short-term deal in terms of being available to Formula One to be rotated in and out for a year or even 2 years, whatever they decide to do. That's the plan for tracks in Europe. Whether we like or not, I'm afraid it's here to say. But let's kick off with that news we all had this week because we have the 11th team on the Formula One grid. No matter our thoughts on what's happened to the Andretti bid, no matter our thoughts on it's not Andretti, it's General Motors or Cadillac or whatever they're calling it these days, ultimately, we've got 11 cars. 11 cars? We've got 11 teams, 22 cars on the Formula One grid. And that can only be good news if you're a fan of the sport. It's what we all want. But let's talk about this bid because it's been rushed through on the back of some political manoeuvring in America. Now, for all of you who are getting a bit uneasy in your seat that we're going to go into the world of politics, we're not. I know better than to delve into there. What I do know is this has been rushed through on the back of some political manoeuvring in America, and it's on the back of a change of government that's happening in January. That's why this has been forced through. It's all to do with who knows who donates to who scratches who's back, and like everything in the world, money makes it go round. And by magic, we now have 11th team in Cadillac joining the grid. What does it mean? Well, Cadillac are essentially a works team. Like I said, it is the Andretti bid rehashed. Andretti's been removed or scrubbed. If you look at the press release from Formula One, if you look at the press release from Cadillac, it basically has no mention of Andretti in it at all. Mario Andretti has been appointed to the board, but it is very much an advisory, non-voting capacity. It looks like very much a token gesture is what I would say at the moment. Does this mean we won't see Andretti on the Formula One grid? Of course it doesn't. This is Formula One. Nothing to stop you, 2 or 3 years down the line, changing your team name, adding them as a sponsor, all sorts of options that could happen to still see Andretti line up on the grid. But what it does look like for 2026, it will be Cadillac Racing, not Andretti Racing, who joined at Formula One. Now, Cadillac, they're coming in as a fully fledged works team. So what does this mean? Well, it means that from 2026, they will have a car on the grid, but it won't have a Cadillac engine because essentially that engine is not ready yet. And they're behind in their development because they didn't realise they were developing one, basically. And with regards to coming into Formula One for 2026, there's absolutely no way they can get a suitable engine up and running. They have, however, it seems, brought the IP rights to the discontinued Renault engine program. We know that Renault have obviously now discontinued their engine program. They're going to Mercedes engines for the new regulations. And on the back of that, they've clearly sold their IP to General Motors for a tidy amount of money to keep that bit afloat and to offset some of the costs they're going to lose by paying for a Mercedes engine and to recoup just some of the costs it costs developing an engine, really, isn't it? Clever business deal once again by Flavio Briatore, who's once again streamlining Alpine, ready for a sale. More on that one as well. We'll cover that one as part of this. But with regards to Cadillac, it looks like a Ferrari engine supplying gearbox is most likely. That deal isn't signed, so it's not 100% yet, but it is looking at a fairly certainty. We know that at the moment, Sauber or Hick, whatever we want to call them, they use Ferrari engines and gearboxes. Obviously, in 2026, they will swap over to Audi. Audi have their own power supply. Ferrari lose Sauber. They will then pick up Cadillac as a new customer, so they don't lose out in terms of the customer teams, knowing that Mercedes weren't going to give another engine out when they've basically struck a deal with Alpine. So that's just the way it works. The other option is being muted as Honda, but we know as part of the Aston Martin deal, they've got an exclusive deal, and I think they're pretty keen to keep that as it is. So I think Honda would be a fail-safe. Bear in mind, any of the engine manufacturers can be forced into supplying a team once the FIA agree an entry onto the grid. So I think it's basically Ferrari or Honda, but Ferrari looking the hot favourites to what's going in that Cadillac. With regards to their own engine, they've actually put on a press release by the end of the decade. A lot of talk is it's going to be 2028. Just be careful of that because that's not a guaranteed time when that engine's coming. Like I said, the official press release from Cadillac says by the end of the decade. So they've left it very open-ended. But we're here in 2028 as being the time for a new engine being made and developed by Cadillac. And Cadillac will then officially become a works team. Until then, it's going to be rebadged. But what does this mean in terms of the Andretti bid? Why is it now Cadillac? And what on earth is going on? American politics is to pay for this. Like I said, I'm not going to get involved in American politics and I'm not going to side over who's done what and what's happened. But ultimately, it's forced an issue with that investigation from the Department of Justice, and we now have an 11th team. Now, Cadillac are going to use the Silverstone base that Andretti set up. Andretti Global is, I think it's TWS Global in terms of who owns it. It's Andretti's partner who's now running it. So essentially, it's the Andretti bid, remodeled, rehashed, and renamed. Cadillac are talking about the same facilities being used. They're recruiting very heavily at Silverstone. It looks like the Silverstone base is going to be one they use. They're currently using the wind tunnel for Toyota, the one that McLaren left vacant because McLaren got their own online. So as you can see, they're very far ahead, very heavily ahead in the recruitment. Got some experienced Formula 1 heads in there, and it's going to be a renaming exercise to switch them over to Cadillac Racing is what I believe we're going to be hearing as a team name, or Cadillac F1. One of those two it's going to be. Talk is Cadillac Racing is what it's going to be. What does it mean, though, for drivers and team principals and everything else? My smart money is on Otmar as a team principal. He talks a lot recently about having an option on the table, talking to a team. He knows what it takes to set a team up in terms of coming in. He's got ties with American car companies. So I would not be surprised at all if you see Otmar rock up as a team principal for this Cadillac Formula 1 team. With regards to drivers, I mean, a lot could change between now and 2026. Colton Herter is the sort of bookie's favourite at the moment. And then we're talking about whoever they want to put in the second seat, maybe an experience, maybe they go into the F2 pool, whatever it looks like. But I think to talk about it now is a bit too early. We've got some drivers who've just left. We've got some drivers who will openly say they'd like a chance. You've got Joe, you've got Bottas, you've got obviously Daniel Ricciardo, who's lost a seat in Singapore. Lots of people who could do a job for them, especially on the short term, who they could pick up and employ. So I think to start speculating on that would be just wrong. Like I say, a lot can happen between now and then, and we don't know exactly how much money's going to be involved in all of this. Money is a really good point. So what's happening with the money? Well, essentially, they're paying $450 million buy-in. This is, up from the $200 million that was quoted as a buy-in, but a lot less than the sort of 800, 600 that's been floated about with regards to the new figure that the teams want in the new Concord agreement. For those who don't know, this is what's called the dilution pot. So this is basically what a new team pays to the Formula 1 teams to say, hey, we're really sorry, we're going to take some of your money away, have some of ours, and then it's split and divided between the teams. There's no exact science to how it's split because, like everything with the Concord agreement, it's under lock and key, so we don't actually know. But there is a kind of rough thing that most of the teams get a fair cut when it comes to anti-dilution money and that side of things. But why have Formula 1 said yes to General Motors and no to Andretti? It's a big question that keeps getting asked over and over again on the page. Yeah, why this one and not that one? Well, essentially, they're the same thing. And for this, you've got to look at money. So I did a video on this one earlier, so apologies if you've seen it, but this is the shortened version. The teams are paid via the prize pot, as we know. So that's the team's income from Formula 1. Now, that prize pot is made up of the earnings that Formula 1 have. So the profit Formula 1 have from sponsorship, commercial deals, any income that Formula 1 have goes into this pot. This pot is then split 50-50. 50% goes to Formula 1 to put in their own bank account, and 50% then goes to the teams in what's known as the prize pot. Now, what happens then is this is then divided up. So there are some teams like Ferrari. Ferrari get 5% of that prize pot before any money is paid out. We then know that McLaren, Williams, Red Bull, Mercedes, they get what's known as a heritage payment as well. So that's what Ferrari have. It's a heritage payment that's paid by Formula 1. It's pre-negotiated. It's been redone a few times, and we're not quite sure of the figures. But ultimately, there's a pot of money that gets divided out amongst those teams, and they get it no matter where they finish in the Constructors' Championship. Then what's left is we then get the prize money that's paid to the teams based on where they finish in the constructors. This is about 16% for the team that finishes first, all the way down to team number 10, who gets 6% of it. And then obviously in the middle is incremental stages down. So that's how the teams get paid. Now, this is very simple. General Motors command more in terms of sponsorship, TV revenue, and deals that Formula One can broker than what Andretti do. Andretti have a rich racing heritage. Don't get me wrong, this is absolutely no slur on Andretti's racing heritage at all. But in terms of moving the needle for Formula One, what Formula One's argument was from the off, and still is that Andretti was not enough to compensate the teams for a dilution of an 11th team coming in. So what they said was, in essence, we had an 11th team in Andretti, and we can't negotiate a bigger deal for the teams because Andretti isn't that well known in terms of sponsorship. So you got to think of Ramco, you got to think Mascot, you got to think Rolex, you got to think all of these teams, Lenovo, Etihad, all of these sponsors of the track. So we're not talking about teams here. We're talking about the track sponsors for a Grand Prix. They're the big commercial deals that Formula One want and go chasing for. That's where the mega money is. Now, with regards to Andretti joining, it wasn't enough for these deals to be bigger. It just wasn't. So what they're saying is, with Andretti joining, the teams wouldn't get any more money. So therefore, the teams would be really annoyed. Their argument now is very different. With Cadillac on board, or General Motors, in essence, what you've got is a massive constructor championship battle. You've now got Ford, who obviously are coming in with Red Bull for 2026. You've got Mercedes. You've got Ferrari. You've then got Honda, who, of course, with Aston Martin, are branding their own voice. You've got all these big manufacturers coming into Formula One, and you can go head to head. You've got Audi coming. You can now add General Motors into that pot. What this will do, naturally in America, is create a bit more buzz, a bit more interest. Bear in mind, in terms of fan sales, you can't sell out a track anymore when it's already sold out. You can't do that. We know that Formula One are actually quite successful on that, right? They get a lot of money from that, but the fans aren't the main income here. This is all about the big commercial deals. They think they can sell the TV rights to more people. They think they can sell bigger sponsorship deals, and that will compensate the teams because ultimately that pot of money at the end of the season will be bigger. Therefore, the teams will be happy. Now, the Concord Agreement runs out at the end of 2025. It's due for renegotiation next year. And what will happen is they will just add the 11th team in terms of the split. So maybe it will go down to, 4%, for example, in terms of the sliding scale. That's how they're going to do it. So the team's cost or prize money loss will be offset by getting more money commercially. That is Formula One's argument to allowing General Motors on board. And that's what they said from the off, that Andretti, not big enough. General Motors being a works team, be it under the Cadillac brand, is enough for them to do it. We know there's various options for works team. We know that Audi could obviously put Porsche in as a works team. They could use Volkswagen. Lots of different options available if they so wanted to further on down the line. So there are some options to make it a bit more exciting for Formula One in terms of negotiating contracts. That's essentially what this is. What does this mean for Alpine in terms of their future? We know that Alpine are being set up for a sale. They will deny it, to the cows come home. We keep hearing it all the time. But ultimately, Flavio Briatore has been brought in to streamline it. He's got rid of the engine side of it. They've paid off the mortgage to their factory. I keep saying it. Andretti was the hot favourites for it to get into Formula One if they couldn't come in as 11th team. That's now gone. My money is on High-Tech. We know that the High-Tech boss, Oliver Oakes, is now the team principal at Alpine. We also know that the FIA did an out-of-court settlement with High-Tech this year with regards to their failed bid. So they've got a pot of money from that. And they had the money from the initial bid as well. So they have the money to be able to buy into Alpine. A couple of ways you could do this. You've got that shareholder, that celebrity shareholder, like Sir Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, all of those, Ryan Reynolds, got a share in Alpine. So you could just buy out the Alpine part of it, or you could buy out the whole lot and give them their money back or an increase in their profit to keep them happy. So lots of options open for the sale of Alpine. We're being told that Flavio Briatore has got until the end of 2026 to get it into a place to sell, and he then gets a cut of the money, which is what he's in doing. He doesn't mind being the bad guy because he's going to walk away with millions in the bank, let's be honest about it. And that's what that deal is. How true that is, I'm not entirely 100% sure, but it kind of fits with what we're seeing and what we're hearing as well. So Alpine, yes, are for sale. The idea, I think, with Oliver Oakes being the team principal, is he will integrate part of his staff into it ready, so that when a High-Tech put in a bid, lo and behold, the infrastructure is already there based on what they want, because they've had someone from high tech, leading the team and putting into place what they want as well. So it kind of makes smart business sense for a takeover. And that means we've probably got one season maximum, if we do get it, of actually seeing Alpine, Mercedes-Benz as it will be. That Mercedes-Benz power supply is going to increase the value when they go sell it as well, because ultimately selling the team with a Mercedes-Benz power supply is a lot more profitable than selling the team with a Renault engine supply that isn't very good, as proven with the current set of regulations with regards to the engines. Again, no stir on Alpine, that's just a fact. We know they've had problems with engines, and selling that failed engine deal isn't a good deal at all for a team coming in, because you've then got to pay to make all those staff redundant. So that's why Flavio Briatore has done it now, in a nutshell. So that is where I see the future for Formula One. 11th team on the grid. I don't think we get a 12th, but I do think we get a high-tech taking over Alpine, either before the new regulations or certainly by the end of the first season of 2026. And we might not actually get the Alpine Mercedes-Benz that we're hearing about. But that's pretty much in terms of news at the moment. We're obviously into the final 2 races of the season. Should we talk Las Vegas? Should we do it? Because as many of you know, because we've been planning it for the best part of a year now, Dad and I have been to Las Vegas. We are back. It's cold, but it was just as cold at the racetrack. It's true what they say. You need to wrap it warm. And yeah, Las Vegas. It was a blast. There were some good things, some bad things. We're going to discuss them all, warts and all, as they say, on what was good and what was bad about racing in Las Vegas. So we flew out of the UK on Monday. So we brought our travel forward by a day because we had an option to change our flight free of charge because they had made the change. So for those who don't know, and complete transparency here, because I believe in that, we were not funded our trip to Las Vegas in any way by any team, any deal, any track tickets, nothing like that. Our trip to Las Vegas was purely funded out of our own money. Now, how do we afford this? Because people always say, how on earth do you afford it? A lot of savvy shopping, a lot of saving, a lot of buy now, pay later on some things. So essentially, we bought the flights all the way back at the beginning of the year. We bought them on a deal. We then brought our hotel, which we got through NGM Direct. A lot of people said the hotel was expensive, and it will probably shock you that we paid just £300 per person to stop from the Monday night to the Sunday morning in Las Vegas. Yep, you heard me. £300 per person. That's it. So it's about 320 if you want to argue about it. But that was it. So people talk about it being expensive. No, it wasn't. We booked early. We secured our price. And yeah, thanks to Adam for that one, because he gave us a heads up on the price of that one. And we managed to book that one. Now, with regards to the tickets, I'm not going to say we got lucky with tickets because I got upset about tickets. And I'll come on to that now. So we bought our tickets in one of the offers they had. So they basically did, I don't know if you remember, when they couldn't sell tickets, it was around just after the summer break. They started doing these deals on them, basically. So we found a deal for Formula One, which was just over £1,000 for 3 days, grandstand tickets, plus an F1 Insider interview and a pit lane walk. When we done the maths, that didn't work out too bad. Yeah, we paid around those sort of prices for Silverstone for 3 days, if you're going in a big grandstand there. So it wasn't too bad. Bear in mind that your race tickets for Las Vegas include all of your food, and it also includes all of your soft drinks. Not alcohol, we'll come on to that one. But a ticket for Las Vegas in a zone gives you food and drink and basically Coke, Sprite and unlimited bottles of water until they sell out. So it wasn't actually a bad deal. Now, when we booked this deal, we booked it and then we started getting some emails from Formula One Experiences. So we booked direct with Formula One Experiences. We then got an email saying that your F1 Insider, which is basically, it's a Will Buxton or somebody doing a interview who you can sit down and ask questions to, is probably the best way to describe it. So we had that booked in for the Wednesday, and that was going to be on the Wednesday along with a pit lane walk, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday was grandstand tickets. I want to say West Harmon, where they had that Lewis Hamilton package, so not the start line finish straight, but that side of the track. We then got an email that said your Insiders event has been cancelled, but as a way of compensation, we're going to upgrade you. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you Skybox hospitality tickets on the Thursday. I'm also going to move your pit lane walk to the Thursday, but you don't get the F1 Insiders one because that's been cancelled. And we found out that your grandstands moved as well to the start finish straight. So in terms of an upgrade, it was quite a good upgrade, let's be honest about it. My annoyance about it was they released packages afterwards that were probably cheaper. and I probably would have still gone for it, if I'm honest. So we had that Lewis Hamilton flash sale where they were really cheap tickets. I probably would have brought something like that. And my annoyance with Formula One experiences when I spoke to them was based on that, where I said, look, I don't mind taking advantage of a sale. I don't mind taking advantage of an offer. What I don't agree with is that packages that weren't available when we booked ours become available at a later date. I feel they should have all been made available, and then you cherry picked which one you wanted. Is just my personal view on that. That's just based on experience of buying tickets for other tracks and just a bit of, for me, it's common courtesy. It felt like we were being ripped off on that point of view. But the price itself wasn't too bad, bear that in mind. And of course, we had the upgrade, so that was sweet. So we flew out on the Monday. We had our flight change. We flew out on the Monday. It took all day to travel. We were literally up for 24 hours. We left the UK at 5 to 5 in the morning. We ended up in Las Vegas at 5:30 at night. Doesn't sound too bad, but when you're traveling over 3 different time zones, believe you me, it is. Then we come to Tuesday morning. So Tuesday morning, we were very kindly contacted by the Las Vegas Raiders, who wanted to know if I want to do a stadium tour. Now, for those who follow my page, Dad's obviously a big F1 fan, but even more importantly, Dad's a Raiders fan. He has been since they were back in LA and then Oakland. Never obviously got anywhere near a stadium. The Allegiant Stadium is a fantastic facility. We got to tour it as part of an offer from the Las Vegas Raiders. So we took a tour of the stadium, went out on the pitch, went round all of it, ticked that off the bucket list. Dad really enjoyed that. And that was a really good start to the week as such. Wednesday, we met up with Adam, who had flown in. It was great to finally meet Adam, met Rob as well. We obviously do the Fancy Formula podcast. It was really good to actually see people who you've been doing a podcast with for the whole year and actually speak to them and shake their hand, have a drink with them. That was pretty cool. Adam ended up adopting us for the rest of the week and becoming our tour guide. Not always very successfully, I must add. If you watch Adam, I'm sure you will be, or listening. You need work on that one. But on a serious note, it was great to spend time with him, and it was great to do that sort of thing. So we basically just spent the first part of the day on Wednesday just walking the strip, something we hadn't done. We wanted to see the sights, wanted to have a wander around. We did that Tuesday, Wednesday, just had pretty much a look around, see what was what, grab some breakfast, check in back at home. In terms of time differences, obviously the UK was 8 hours behind us, or 8 hours ahead, whichever one it was. There was an 8-hour difference, but that way. And it made it really tough for me to check in with Joe and the kids, if I'm honest. On a personal note, I struggled a lot. And we'll come on to that, how that affected the trip as well, because for me, that was a real big part of it. So I had an absolute blast. I just want to get that one out there. But there were some things I definitely struggled with, which I think were just a factor of the way the race is set up and the way Las Vegas is set up, and geographically the way it's set up in terms of time zones and time differences. But anyway, we did that. We went for a couple of the beers on the evening, met obviously Rob for the first time, met Greg from FanAmp as well. Josh was there as well. So we basically just sat, had a few beers, then got ready for Thursday. So Tuesday, Wednesday is very much touristy stuff is what I would say. And you could see the way the city moved as the week went on. It started off very much quite quiet, very minority in terms of Formula One shirts, and then suddenly it started ramping up. So as you got to Wednesday, it was a bit more busier. As you got to Thursday, there was loads of Formula One shirts starting to appear. Thursday, we went to the Win, where we recorded the Fancy Formula podcast in their Sirius XM studio, which was just amazing. Proper full-blown professional studio setup. It was an absolute blast, with Jeremiah and the team there just filming it. It was, quite surreal, sat there in this booth, filming the podcast right in the middle of the Win. And what they do is they actually blast it out over the speakers, so people walking past can hear the podcast. They were coming up and they were stopping at the window and looking in, and you could see them, they could see you, and I was like, oh, it's a bit nervous. But in terms of a setup, wow, what a setup. Just everything about it, the way the microphones are set up, the way the desk is set up, you can change the background. I know that FanAmp did some more recording there with some other stuff they got coming out. So the way they organised it was great, and the way it is organised was amazing. The podcast that came out is just super, super amazing. It looks visually just stunning. Here we are sat in the shed, and there you've got proper backdrops and proper lighting, and a direct camera on you and a wide camera coming all through it. It's just it was something else. Honestly, it was amazing to do that. We then had to bounce from there straight to the pit lane walk, and Thursday was a day I really struggled with. I felt ill, and it wasn't good for me from a personal experience. So we went from there. We went straight there to the track for the pit lane walk. We did the pit lane walk, and I went hospitality, where I had to go to medical for the first time because I was really struggling. It's not something I've ever done at a track before. A big shout out to Las Vegas medical team. They were great. They sorted me out and helped me out, but it just took away for me the sort of hospitality experience that we had, because I just wasn't very well. It's nothing that Las Vegas did wrong, by the way. It was nothing that I ate or anything. It's an illness that I've got that I have to deal with, that flared up from traveling over there, and it kind of caught me on the hop, and it kind of just made me feel rubbish, which was a shame. So I didn't really get an experience of the hospitality. I was kind of in, out, up, down the lift, in medical, back. We were on a skybox, it was top floor, so it was great location. Food looked amazing. Drinks were free, even though I didn't have any. Dad certainly made up for it with my share and his, and some bourbon to top off with. And then we came back from the track, and that was wild. So when we were coming back from the track, we left the track after free practice 2. As we came back, we followed Adam, and this is where he needs to work on his tour guide experience. A side street, following some people, through a chain link fence that had been ripped open, and across the building site back to the hotel. 45 minutes later, we were back at the hotel somehow, but all's good in the world because we ended up back there. But it did make me and Dad sort of think we need to find a better way to work on the track that is less likely to get us either in hospital or arrested, to be honest, looking at it. So coming out of the track was really poor in terms of organisation from Formula One themselves. So when you leave the track, you're supposed to go to rideshare points. These weren't very well signposted at all. They were quite poor. If I think back to my Barcelona experience, where you come out and got on a bus and went straight back to the city centre, that was perfect. Obviously a little bit different in Las Vegas, but you couldn't walk back across the strip because the track was there. So you had to walk round. But everyone's then, I don't want to walk round because I've been at the track all night, it's cold, and I just want to go back to my hotel. And I can't do that because you won't let me across the strip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find shortcuts. And then everyone follows everyone like sheep, basically. So that was the big issue with that one. But then we come on to the Friday and qualifying. Now we're feeling a lot better. Adam's wife joined us. And big shout out to Adam's wife, Amy, for putting up with us. And we then went to watch basically what was practice and then qualifying. In terms of getting there, it was a lot easier. So we took an Uber, as Adam takes a mick out of my accent. We took an Uber down to the track, and we got dropped off pretty much outside the gates, walked in, no problem at all. Watched free practice, free, and then qualifying. And then we went back we found the rideshare at the Virgin Hotel, got in there and went back to the hotel after a bit of a wait. So that was okay. That was a lot better. And then Saturday, we obviously had the race itself, where we got a taxi back down or an Uber back down to the track. We jumped into the grandstand, watched the race, and then we made our way back via the rideshare point, but a bit further on where you get it a lot easier. Very smooth, very easy. Once you knew your way around, it was a lot better, to be honest. My experience at the track, the food was actually really nice. So we had there was hot dogs, there was salad that no one ate. Let's be honest about it. There was sandwiches there as well, like meatball sandwiches. They changed that one on. And I say alcohol was expensive. I think Dad got collared for $14 for a can of Heineken, which, when you think about it, is about £11 or something stupid. That was ridiculous. But like I said, if you wanted free bottled water and Coke and stuff, it was free. The fan experience inside the track was really, really weird because you're segregated. So you got a stage and you've got stuff in there. So we had a silent disco, we had an arcade in there, the normal Sims, but the queue's far too long to get on them. And there was a stack of cards in there. It looked nice visually, but you can't go around the track. Now, me experiencing Formula One, I'm used to a free-flowing track where you can walk all the way around, you can see everything, you can check out different food stalls. You can't do that in Las Vegas. You're literally penned into your zone, and that's where you can get into. So it's fine, but when you've explored it a couple of times, there ain't that much to explore, and there certainly isn't 3 days worth of stuff going on in there to explore. They had a cocktail bar, American Express, sort of headset place where if you had an Amex card, you could go get that. Merch stall, of course. But yeah, it was okay in terms of fan experience, but it wasn't amazing. I wouldn't say, for me, it wasn't a selling point. There were some good concerts on in there, but again, I was far too old to know who they are. I'm sure that people who follow my page will be like, oh my God, you saw such and such. And I'll be like, I haven't got a clue. But in terms of fan experience, it lacks a bit for me because you're confined to one zone and one zone only. And you can't deviate away from that unless you've got tickets in different areas. So for me, that's just a bit of a disappointment from that experience. And then the biggest thing for me is a night race. I'm not a fan of night racing. Now, those who know will know my background is in retail. So I used to be a retail manager. When I was a retail manager, I hated late nights. I'm an early riser, mainly because of the children's care needs, but I'm naturally an early riser. I always have been. I get up early. That's my bag. That's my thing. I don't lie in. It's not something I can do. It's just my setup. It's a personal thing. It's not a, everybody. There are some people who prefer late nights, as I'm sure there are. I'm not one of those. So for me, waiting all day to go to the track was like torture, if I'm honest. I prefer a afternoon race and then go back and have something to eat, grab a beer or drink, and then go back to your hotel room. I hated this wait till 10 o'clock in the evening to watch the race. And then it's cold. I mean, we're from the UK, so is it cold? I mean, was it any colder than watching touring car at Silverstone? No, probably not. At least you were wet, if I'm honest, which is almost guaranteed at Silverstone at this time of the year. But from the point of view of just being hot all day, the extremities, I would say, is the biggest thing. So 1 minute you're like boiling hot in shorts and t-shirt because it's the desert. The next minute you're putting on gloves and an extra layer because you're freezing cold in the sand. And my word, the wind on that Saturday night was just, that chill factor. I was like this at one point, just going, oh my God, what am I doing here? In terms of our view at the track, it wasn't great. The reason I said it wasn't great, yes, it was on the start-finish straight. Yes, it was on the main Heineken straight. However, because of the fact it's a night race, you've got the gantries with the floodlights on, which obviously you need for the driver's seat. And the way they positioned our seat was, as you looked at, you basically had a gantry in front of your TV screen, so you couldn't actually see what was going on. I keep saying about this, and I keep on about this, and it's not a criticism at all, but if you want to follow a Formula One race, don't go to the track. You won't get the information you need. If you want to go and experience seeing cars on track, and you want to experience the atmosphere, and you want to make friends, and you want to just be part of a Formula One race, by all means, go to the track. But if you want to know what's going on in the race, don't go to the track. It's terrible. You can't tell what's going on. It's all at sync. You can't hear stuff. And they use their own commentary team, which was just painful at times with wrong information, lack of information. You don't get the main feed commentary. It just, for me, that experience is never nice. And that's the same wherever you go. That's not a criticism in Vegas. It's the same whether you go to Barcelona or whether you go to even Silverstone. When they use the local sort of commentary team, you're kind of used to something. So it doesn't feel the same is the best way. And like I said, it's very disjointed in terms of information and getting stuff in there. We did that. We then basically Sunday morning checked out and flew home, and we took a lunchtime flight out of Vegas and was back in the UK by Monday morning in essence. And that was our week in Las Vegas. We didn't bet a lot, and I'm not a betting person, so I was quite happy being in the casino and not betting. Had a couple of goes on the roulette table just for a bit of fun as we walked out the door. Bet on Max Verstappen to win just because it felt the right thing to do after the odds went to stupidly long. There's a reason they were stupidly long, because he had no chance of winning, but it was worth a tenner, put it that way. And probably a few dollars in the gambling machines, the one-armed bandits as we called them growing up. And that was about it, really. In terms of, few people, activations, went to the Puma store by pure accident and saw Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz filming a commercial there for Puma. And that was just a lucky point. Cars everywhere, so hotels had cars in them, shops had cars in them, some even tried to sell you cars. Merchandise was overpriced and old, so do not buy your merchandise from Las Vegas unless you're buying like one limited edition, so like the Snoopy range, that side of things. If you're buying team wear, don't bother. I was seeing like $140 for last year's Ferrari. It's not even worth it. It's honestly not worth it. But that goes to any track. I never buy merch from the track. And those who know me know I live in Formula One merch. So just a bit of handy advice on that front. But in terms of the experience, it was great meeting some people. We went to the Fan App meetup on Friday and met loads of people. That was great. And in terms of, actually saying hi to people who have followed the page for a while, I absolutely loved doing that one. Was welcome after feeling so crap on Thursday, feeling ill. So yeah, for me, Las Vegas is great to have done. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad to say that I've been. I'm glad to say that I've done it. I'm not one for going to these tracks again because of the fact I like to try something new. And with 24 races on the calendar, why not? So yeah, would I go again? I would go again, but I wouldn't put it at the top of my bucket list to go. I still enjoy Silverstone a lot more. And ironically, I enjoyed Barcelona a lot more than Las Vegas. But like I say, a lot of that's just a personal thing on the basis of I don't like night races. I don't like waiting to go to the track. It's just me. That's just a personal thing. I find it really hard to stay engaged that late at night when I've been up all day. And when you're cold as well, it kind of just took the edge off it. But in terms of like a crazy circus and an atmosphere, you can't beat it. It was great. To take a ride down, what's essentially the track during the day before they close off is just mind-boggling. And to see each night by night the way the track is constructed, interacted, and put together, absolutely great. Like I said in a few videos I've done, in terms of the disruption to the locals, absolutely I can see. I know it was a lot better this year than what it was last year. Hopefully it'll be even smoother next year. But in terms of the disruption, it's a nightmare. Just walking from A to B can take ages. So I can really see why people get pissed off of it being in their city and taking over. But then I'm sure the same companies who gain commercially by having a bunch of Formula One fans there, because at the weekend it was rammed. I know that Raiders were playing at home as well, which played a part in it. But in terms of the two combinations, made it absolutely buzzing for the weekend. And like I say, the vibes it was giving off was great. They had some great locations there, some crazy things. We did the Williams pop-up shop. We saw that one as well. Loads of activations all over the place. That was great. To get around some of those. We didn't get around half of them, but you had Mercedes pop-ups. You had McLaren were doing activations as well. Loads of stuff going on. So if you want to go there and experience it, I would recommend doing it, because at least you can say you've been to Las Vegas and you've seen the Formula One there, which is pretty special. In terms of me personally, I think Silverstone and Barcelona are still ahead in terms of what you experience at the track from a personal fan point of view, is what I would say. So with all of that in mind, I don't think I've got too much left to talk about. Obviously, the race itself, we know that Mercedes found a 1-2 from somewhere. They haven't found DAS before anyone asked me about that one. I've not seen anything that suggested Mercedes have got DAS. The video I've seen is pretty crap. I don't understand why George Russell would be using it on just one corner, and I don't understand why he'd be using it where he did. It looks very much like a movement under braking, which when I looked at the Ferrari on board, the McLaren on board, and the Red Bull, certainly the Red Bull and the McLaren seem to do the same thing. So unless they've all developed DAS, I'm putting that down to just the way the steering column moves under braking is what I will say on that one. I think we've got to be really careful. We've had a season with so much rumour and gossip without any substance. Once again, we've got something taken over that has no evidence, has no proof. Watering tyres, all braking, bidgate, all of these things going on where we've just had, stories with no evidence going viral and everyone kind of believing that they're gospel. But I haven't seen anything on the Mercedes to make me think they've got DAS or anything. What they do have is a car that works well in cool temperatures, and once again prove that when the W15 is cold, it actually quite likes it. What that means for the rest of the season, we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, Abu Dhabi, I'm not sure it's going to make too much of an issue. Qatar is going to be colder, but then is it going to be cold enough? We know we've got a sprint weekend. We know that they've made changes to the track in terms of the curbs that were pointed, pyramid shape. They sanded them down, so that's been made easier. They got C1, C2, C3 compound tyres going there as well. So it should be a lot better experience, should be a lot cooler for the drivers. So I'm expecting a better weekend this weekend. But we can't go without acknowledging 4 times world champion Max Verstappen. Obviously finished in 5th in Las Vegas, enough to get the championship after holding off Lando Norris, who was 6th and got the fastest lap. But ultimately, this has to be Max's greatest achievement. This is the one where there's absolutely nothing you can take away from him. There's no controversy. There's no favoritism in terms of just having a outright dominant car. This is Max's one where only Max Verstappen in that Red Bull, I think, could have delivered the title. That win in Brazil was on a different level. I think Max has matured greatly as a driver. I think he deserves his place amongst the greats in Formula One. Is he the greatest? Everyone will have that debate. I still think that your greatest is generational, depending on when you follow the sport and who you come in. I'm still a firm believer that for me, Ayrton Senna was the most naturally gifted driver I've ever seen race a Formula One car. Statistically, it won't be. It will be Lewis, it will be Michael, might even be Max if he keeps racing. But ultimately, I do think that Max deserves his place in that conversation as one of the greatest drivers in Formula One. To achieve 4 back-to-back titles is pretty special. We've obviously only Seb doing it before. And you can't take anything away from this one. There's nothing in there where even the most hardened people who criticised Max's previous wins can't do that with this title at all. Yeah, it was hard fought, it was hard won, and it was fairly won with no ambiguity or no issues with this one. It's just been pure driving. We've had 8 different winners this season. Max Verstappen is the 2024 Formula One World Champion, and you know what? He deserved it. He hasn't put a foot wrong all season. He may have banked that lead from the first few races of the season, but if you look at the statistics, that gap didn't actually go down by more than a few points over the course of those 10 winless races that he had. So ultimately, that shows you where Max's consistency was to get that World Championship. What does it mean for the team? What does it mean for Checo? Red Bull sitting third. I mean, if you told me that beginning of the season, I probably would have laughed at you and gone, are you for real? You telling me Max Verstappen is going to win the World Championship? Different winners. Max is going to go about 10 races without winning, and we're going to have Red Bull in third in the Constructors. I would have said you're going to laugh, aren't you? But you know what? We're in that position. Here we are. I still think McLaren are the favourites to get the Constructors. I think that Red Bull won't actually mind because they get extra wind tunnel time. So I think if they're going to lose it, you might as well be third and lose it. I remember Toto a few years ago saying if you're not going to win, it doesn't really matter if you get second, third, fourth or fifth, because the prize money difference is minimal and you get the benefit of extra wind tunnel time. So I think if Red Bull can't win it, I think they'd be quite happy to be third, if I'm honest, based on the fact they get more wind tunnel time, which after being the champions and having that cost cut penalty, is going to suit them down to the ground going into 2026 without, of course, Adrian Newey. So for them, finishing third isn't the end of the world. Probably better than them finishing second in terms of what they want from the cost cap and everything else. But yeah, what does it mean for drivers? The driver lineup is almost complete. Obviously, we now know what's going on. Apart from Visa, Cash App, RB and Red Bull, we've heard that shareholders are meeting to decide Checo's future. That's going to be purely done on money. Let's be honest here. There's no way speculating either. We don't know what the criteria is that they're going to make their mind up on. Is it how much money Checo brings in, or is it performances? If it's performances, he's gone. If it's money, he stays. It's very simple. That's what it's going to be. If it's based on should he be in that Red Bull based on his current performance, the answer is no. Is it he's in that Red Bull because of the amount of money he brings and it costs too much to buy someone like Franco Colapinto out? Then he's still going to be in it, isn't he? What I will say is with people like Franco potentially not getting a drive for 2025, there's going to be a lot of people looking nervously over their shoulder, because don't be surprised if someone like Franco is sitting in the Williams garage with his headphones on. We're going to get a Liam Lawson style cut to every time something happens to a driver on the Formula 1 grid. We know that Bottas is most likely going to Mercedes in the reserve role, so he's going to be floating about. We know that Joe is in talks with Ferrari to be their reserve driver, so he's going to be floating about. So we also don't know what's going on with Daniel Ricciardo long term as well. So bear in mind that whatever happens with that last VCOB seat and whatever happens with Checo's seat, there's a lot of Formula 1 experience that is ready to step in at a moment's notice, which could make next season really interesting in terms of teams making a change somewhere, which is something we've seen this year as well. Other bits of driver news, Kimi Antonelli is going to have the number 12 on his car. He beat Jack Doohan to that number. Jack Doohan has now got number 7. That's been made available after Kimi Raikkonen's retirement. Basically, when a driver retires, you have to wait 2 years and then you can pick their number, which is what's happened in this case. So Jack Doohan's gone for that one. He's confirmed he's number 7. We haven't heard Gabriel Bortoletto, what number he's having yet. We're still waiting here on that one. We are just waiting on that Sauber one in terms of numbers of what we're going to see on the grid. But with all that in mind, we are at the 45-minute mark, so I won't keep you any longer than I have to. Once again, thank you for listening to Coffee Corner Motorsport 4 Beans podcast. There's a little button down there for you to like, subscribe, follow, whatever you want to do with it. Please share with your friends if you just like hearing ramblings in my shed about Formula 1, because I appreciate every single one of you for doing it. As I keep saying, I do this for fun. This is not my job. It's not my career. I'm a stay-at-home carer. Look after the children is my number one thing. This is purely for my mental health. This is purely for me to engage with people, to talk to people, because I love Formula 1. And I see it as a really strong thing mentally to be able to de-stress from what I do on a day-to-day basis and make Formula 1 content. It's something that fits in with our lives, fits in with where I can fit it in. And it's something I really enjoy doing. So I appreciate every single person who likes, comments, shares, comes and stops me, talks to me. It blows me away every single time, because like I say, will this be a job? I'd like it to be a job. My aim is that one day I could do something with Formula 1, the teams, this channel, whatever that looks like, and it could be a job so that we could actually, make it financially payable, so that I could do this whilst setting up the kids. But for me, like I say, it's something I do for fun. It's something I really enjoy doing. And I genuinely appreciate all of the comments. I read them all. I try and respond where I can. And it means the world to me. Before I sign off this podcast, I need to say a big shout out to Sophie, my stepdaughter. Now, she practically moved in with us for the week while I went to Las Vegas. She did all the school runs with Joe. She made sure that everything was okay. Joe obviously did an amazing job in the hold down the fort to letting us go. It was tough. Anybody who's got children will know that being away is tough. Anyone who's got disabled children will know that being away is a complete gut wrench. You spend your time on the phone. You spend your time feeling guilty about being away. You spend your time wishing you were back at home at times. And it's a real, love-hate thing to do. So for me, I really struggle with that because I'm used to getting up with them. I'm used to helping. I'm used to doing that in amongst all of the stuff I do. So to be so far away for so long was really tough. But Sophie really stepped up to the mark in terms of helping out. So a huge shout out to her because ultimately it wouldn't be possible. I can't just pack a bag and go. I know lots of people can't pack a bag and go. That's not a criticism to anybody at all. But for me personally, it took a lot of organising and planning, and even Sophie taking a week off work for us to go to Las Vegas. And that's certainly not underappreciated and not unnoticed by myself and Dad. So Sophie, if you ever do listen to a Formula One podcast, which I doubt it, thank you very much, sweetheart, and I love you lots for doing it. For everyone else, I suppose I love you lots too. And see you on the next one.